Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Extraordinarily Ordinary. My guest today is Wani Ardy. She is a Malaysian published author, poet performer, singer-songwriter, and founder of MRKH Malaysia. What's MRKH? Let's see if I can pronounce this without butchering it up. It's Mayer-Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser Syndrome. That's a mouthful, and it's a congenital malformation resulting in underdeveloped female reproductive system. Well, let's welcome our guest today, Miss Wani Ardy. Hi, Wani.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit, who is Wani Ardy?
Wani Ardy is a writer, performer, an advocate, an activist, a mother, a wife, a daughter, a friend. The list could go on.
Okay, so you are the founder of MRKH Malaysia. What
Yes, I am.
started you on your activism and speaking up about MRKH?
Okay, so growing up as an MRKH girl, I didn't have any peer support. I didn't have any reference. Any reference in terms of somebody in my country, somebody within my culture, my background, whom I can relate to. So I searched for support groups on the internet, and I found a few support groups outside of Malaysia, especially the one in the US. It is called Beautiful You Foundation. So it's a support group for MRKH women and girls, especially as well as their families and their partners. So the whole experience of being able to communicate with other MRKH girls who are going through more or less the same situation as I was going through. It was very overwhelming. It was very empowering. I felt I was not alone, because all this while I thought I was the only one with this condition. When I got to speak face to face with the co-founder of Beautiful You Foundation, her name is Christina Ruth. We're very good friends now. That was the very first moment that I laid my eyes on someone with the same condition as I have. The ability to just look in the eye of someone who doesn't have a uterus, who doesn't have, who was born without vagina. It was very empowering, and I wanted to do the same for the girls in my country, because I thought, if I could feel this way with someone across the globe, what else with someone within my culture, within my background? I need to form a support group, especially for MRKH Malaysian women, Malaysian MRKH women.
You were diagnosed with MRKH when you were 18 years old, is that correct?
Yes, 17, 18, right after SPM.
Before the diagnosis, did you know that you had a syndrome? And then after the diagnosis, what was your reaction? How did you deal with it? Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
I kind of suspected that there was something wrong with me, because first of all, I didn't get my menses. My menstruation didn't start. Unlike my peers, unlike my friends, when we were in high school, like all of my girlfriends, they had their periods, and I still haven't gotten mine. So I knew something was wrong with me, and we learned about science and biology in class. So I knew that it would mean that something is wrong with my reproductive system, and possibly fertility issues. I have to admit that I denied it at first, because being a teenager is a very difficult phase, right? Like there's a lot of things going on. Like you have your studies, and you have your friends, and you have your friends who are not really friends, and you have all the school drama and whatnot.
We have all that.
Yes, and struggling with exam and academics and stuff like that. So I kind of put this personal issue aside, I felt left out whenever they're talking about periods. And as a teenager, all that we wanted was to fit in, right? We don't want to be the different one. We don't want to be unique. I mean, now as adults, yes, we appreciate individuality. We appreciate uniqueness. But as a teenager, you don't want to be unique. So after SPM, we went for a checkup, which led to many other checkups from one hospital to another, from one doctor to another. I would say all of them have never had an MRKH patient. I was there first. A few of them diagnosed me wrongly. A few of them had to had a special meeting with their team to find out what was wrong with me. So throughout all those process, I started to feel like, am I a freak? Why am I knew I was different. I didn't know I was this different, because judging by the doctor's reactions, I could tell that this is something that does not happen often. So they eventually they told me that I was born with a rare congenital disorder. I was born without uterus. They did not mention that I was born without upper vagina as well, because I was young and they thought it was inappropriate. This has a lot to do with stigma and Asian culture and whatnot. So and they told me that this only happens to 1 in every 5,000 women. So as a teenager, that was a lot to process. My reaction was just so I won't have my own kids, I went straight to that conclusion. And they said, you will not be able to carry your own child. But I think the whole diagnosis affected my mother more than it affected me. Her first response was like, I think it's best for you to not get married. Why don't you just, stay with me? And we grow old together. And I was like, I like the part about growing old together, but I'm not so sure about not getting married ever. Even though I was a teenager, and of course I didn't have any marriage plans in my mind, but of course I wanted to have my own family someday. I wanted to be normal.
Has your mother been your biggest supporter since the diagnosis? I mean, I understand that as a mother, she probably worried more about your future than you yourself worried about your own future. But how has she been since the diagnosis until now? Has she been supporting you in your activism and your family?
Okay, this is a good question because nobody has ever asked me this question before. So just like me, she started with being in denial. Like, she told me not to get married. She told me not to get too serious into relationships, and she told me to make sure that I will grow into becoming an independent woman, that I don't have to rely on anyone, that if ever one day, she's not around, I will be able to take care of myself. I know those are, positive advice, but I know that all those advice come from fear, It came from fear. It came from pushing the bigger issue away. Just like how I grew, she grew as well. And to be honest, when I first started advocating about MRKH syndrome, I didn't tell her. I come from a very conventional and traditional and religious family. If I'm not mistaken, I remember that my mother actually told me once or twice, or a few times, not to tell anyone about information. I know she meant well. I know she meant very well. She wanted to protect me. She wanted to protect me from, embarrassment, from stigma and whatnot. That actually went on until I got married and until I adopted my son. She advised me, if ever anybody asks, just say that you gave birth to your son. And I was like, how am I supposed to do that? I didn't have a big belly for 9 months, and I couldn't keep my condition a secret. So how can I go on as far to telling the world that I gave birth to my son instead of adopting him? People know me by my creative work. People know me by my stage work. I am not famous, but I cannot put up such a big lie like that. It was not possible. From then on, I understood that if I ever decide to advocate about MRKH syndrome, I can't tell my mom. I went behind her back and I did a lot of activism things, programs, but of course eventually she found out, and just like any Asian parent, she kept quiet. She didn't speak about it until 1 year or 2 years ago that she actually told me that, hey, I actually listened to your talk on the radio. It was really good. That was a huge sign of approval for me. When I went to Melbourne representing Malaysia in the Global MRKH conference, that was also when my mom started to show her support. She finally understood why I'm doing this, because in the past she was worried about shame and stigma and like, why you want to talk about this in public? Why you want to talk about uterus, upper vagina, talking about sexual health, reproductive health? Why do you want to talk about this in public? After a few years, she learned that I'm helping people, I'm helping myself. I'm not doing this for me alone. I'm doing this for many other MRKH girls out there.
As a Muslim woman, I can relate with you because there are a lot of, say, taboo subjects that we are not supposed to talk about. But on the other hand, if we do talk about it, we will actually help others who might be in the same boat as we are. And speaking of taboo subjects, let's talk about mental health. How did your condition affect your mental health?
There's actually a research by Dr. Haiza Hatim from PPUKM. She did a research about how MRKH syndrome affects the mental health of Malaysian women who was born with MRKH syndrome. And from that research, I learned that I am not the only one who's battling with insecurity, low self-esteem, low confidence. Even though I am a performer, I know everybody says that you go on stage all the time, you perform all the time. How can you not have confidence? It's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. When I'm talking about MRKH, I'm literally talking about my personal life. I'm talking about my body. Every time I advocate about MRKH syndrome, every time I talk about MRKH syndrome, it feels like I'm going naked in public. A lot of us struggle with depression as well. Dealing with this condition is one thing, dealing with it health-wise, like not having upper vagina and not having uterus, that could cause you to have other abnormalities as well, especially issues related to kidneys, bladder, heart, skeletal bones, hearing, and those are just physical health issues. On the other side, we also struggle with trying to build relationship, trying to share about our condition with friends, how to make our family understand, how to make our in-laws understand. There's a lot that we have to deal with that definitely put a lot of weight on our shoulders. We don't have the same path. Like before going into relationship, this is what we have to do to our body. Before we go into marriage, this is what we have to do. and throughout marriage, this is what we have to do. It's a whole different manual for us doctors. They give you information and facts and whatnot, but they cannot advise you, about relationships, about marriage, about accepting your body. Peer support is so important. And in MRKH Malaysia, we are so blessed to be able to provide each other with peer support, and not just peer support, but also medical support, because we officially collaborate with the ONG unit in PPUKM as well as Hospital Ampang. So we have doctors and professors and researchers and gynecologists as well in the support group. So we try to give as much support as we can from all angles. So it won't be, just us talking to each other. We also have medical experts, medical professionals. Yep.
At the moment, you wear many hats. You're a songwriter, you're a performer, you're a poet. Do you think that by channeling your thoughts, your emotions into music and lyrics help you deal with all this weight that you carry, all mentally and emotionally?
This is how I've been seeing it. I only started to write about MRKH syndrome in my poetry these recent years. But I've been performing since 2002. It has been a good distraction for me because throughout all these years of performing, I've never performed any creative work that's directly related to MRKH syndrome or fertility issues, reproductive issues. So to be honest, I was not advocating MRKH syndrome just yet throughout my career as a performer. But how it helped me, it gave me a lot of practice in terms of how to speak in public, how to go on stage, how to manage my fears. I believe that all these years, God has made me a performer so that I could practice and build myself into becoming an advocate. As a schoolgirl, I was pretty quiet. I was scared of a lot of things. I don't think I could jump from that to directly becoming an advocate. So all those years of performing, it really built my confidence. And as an MRKH girl, self-confidence has been our biggest problem.
Other than performing in public, is there any other way that you, or any other things that you do to help you overcome the challenges of having MRKH syndrome?
There's something that's very therapeutic about helping other MRKH girls. I noticed that I have this habit of every time I feel low, every time I'm going through a rough patch, I would distract myself by giving support to other MRKH girls and, meeting them, sit down with them together with their partners and help them to just process the whole thing, sit down with their families as well, their parents, and help them as well. I would always feel much better after helping others. But of course, I wouldn't go as far as saying, I'm helping others just to make myself feel good. It's a bonus thing. My music work, my poetry work, they help me to keep my mind occupied. I guess that's why I felt really affected when I found out that I've lost half of my hearing, possibly due to MRKH syndrome, because one of the side effects is hearing loss. I believe everything has a process that we need to go through. So I would usually give myself maximum 2 weeks for me to feel sorry for myself. And then I'll be like, okay, time's up, that's it. You have a lot of work to do. You have bills to pay. So yeah, time's up. and that usually works. Yeah, because I believe that there's no way I can be strong without being weak first.
What other talents do you have other than songwriting, singing? Okay, let's say what musical instruments do you play?
I play very basic guitar. My dad, he was a multi-instrumentalist. He plays the organ, the piano, he plays the guitar, he plays some other instruments as well. He was very strict and I couldn't learn from him. I only managed to learn guitar.
Did you do
My
that?
mom
You
sent
played
me
his
to
back as
piano
well?
classes. Yes, I did, because their mindset was that, sons should learn guitar and daughters should learn piano. So my mom actually sent me to piano classes, which I ran away from secretly for almost a month. And then my teacher called up my mom and said, your daughter had been absent for a whole month. And my mom was like, what? I sat her every week. I'm really bad with piano, but I love guitar. Because my parents are very conventional, I had to go behind their back to learn guitar. And every time I go to the jamming studio, I would tell them that I'm going to study groups for SPM. and my parents discovered that I've been performing here and there, performing my own songs here and there because they found me on YouTube.
I'm not even gonna ask what they did to you when they found out.
It was scary. It was scary. The moment your parents called you up with using your full name.
That's always a tell, isn't it? When they call you by your full name, it's always a sign that you're in trouble.
Yes, big trouble.
You write poetry. Would you mind reciting one of your favorite poems here? Just a short one.
I'm gonna share a poem from my book, The Art of Letting God. And this is a poem that I performed in Melbourne during the Global MRKH conference. And I wrote this poem on my mom's birthday, actually. And the title of this poem is Ummi. To the mother whose womb was a home, to a daughter born without a womb, I will never know how it feels like to be you, and you will always be my women of wonders. The tiny feet kicking you from inside, the moments of battle between death and life, I will never know how it feels like to be you. The pregnancy tests and the announcements, the maternity dresses and the doctor's appointments, I will never know how it feels like to be you. The 9 months of carrying me, the morning sickness and random cravings, the pain you endured pushing me out of your body, I will never know how it feels like to be you. Dear Mother, your sacrifices will forever be, quite literally, a beautiful mystery to me. While your heart, Mother, your heart is the greatest secret that has ever lived. Thank you and happy birthday. Your first daughter, Wani.
Wow. I literally have goosebumps. Okay.
I miss my mom.
So I miss my mother too. Before we go, is there any message you would like to convey to our audience, especially women who may be have been diagnosed with MRKH syndrome but are suffering alone and they don't know where to go to get peer support?
You can find MRKH Malaysia on Facebook and on Instagram, and you can be also in our WhatsApp group. But of course, we will need documentation in the form of medical report, a doctor's letter. But if you don't have all that, we do have another group called MRKH Nusantara. MRKH Nusantara is for MRKH women in Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Those who could not come up with official documentation on their diagnosis, because I understand that with the pandemic that's going on right now, it's hard for you to go to the hospital, and even if it's not because of the pandemic, some people just don't have the means or not ready yet to get proper diagnosis and whatnot. We want to give support to all of them, whether those who have been diagnosed and those who have not been diagnosed. I just want you to know that you are not alone. Yes, you will have a different manual on how to live a happy life, but inshallah, there's a solution to everything. Happiness does not have to come in the form of being a perfect woman, being a woman with uterus, with vagina, being women with a slim body, with fair skin. Happiness does not have to mean that, and happiness does not have to mean marriage, and even being a mother does not have to mean just carrying a child. The term motherhood is so big, and there's so many ways for you to become a mother. As Asians, especially, we are so rigid with our mindset. When you don't have uterus, you can't be a mom forever, or when you can't get pregnant, nobody will want to marry me. I think that's shallow. And it's already 2021, and we should not go there anymore. We should break all this stigma. If this is the mindset that you have grown up with, it has to end with you.
All right. Thank you so much, Wani, for doing this interview with me. It has been my pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And I learned so much about MRKH syndrome from you. And I hope maybe sometime in the future, I'd love for you to come back as my guest, and maybe we can talk about another topic sometime. Yeah?
Sure. I would love to.
To my audience, you are no less a woman if you have MRKH syndrome or any other disorders, mental disorder, physical disorder. It doesn't make you any less of a woman or a human being for that matter. Acceptance comes first, yes, and I know it can be hard to accept whatever God plans for you at first, but I think as long as we keep moving forward and work with what we have and create our own happiness, because no one else can make you happy other than yourself. So everyone, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell below to get notification alerts on my future videos. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Wani.
Bye. Stay safe.